Now, if there's one thing Americans apparently don't want, it's a rematch. CNN polling shows that very few people are excited about either Joe Biden or Donald Trump in 2024, and that is leading some to consider the viability of a third-party run for president. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski thinks one of her Democratic colleagues might be up to the task.
If it's a matchup between Biden and Trump, I know exactly where I'd go. I would go with Joe Manchin. I am one who doesn't like to use my vote for the lesser of evils. I want to be proactive in who I think could do the job. I think Manchin could do the job. But will our system allow for that? That I don't know.
And joining us now is Republican Governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan. The former governor, I should say. He's also an honorary national co-chair of the centrist political organization No Labels, which is actively considering running a third-party candidate in 2024. Governor Hogan, thank you for joining us. As a former constituent in Maryland, I made you a permanent governor there of that state. I do want to ask you, though, about...
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Good morning.
Good morning. I want to ask you about what Lisa Murkowski was saying there, because there was a new poll just out yesterday asking basically this question, asking voters, would you consider a third-party candidate? There was a generic option, but there was also an option for them to choose Manchin and a Huntsman, a kind of unity ticket, a Republican and a Democrat. But when you look at the numbers here, 75% of those polled here say no, they wouldn't consider Manchin and Huntsman. I mean, doesn't that undermine the real core case that No Labels is trying to make to the country?
I don't think so. Look, I'm not sure whether Joe Manchin or Huntsman have any real interest in running for president and vice president. But when you look at the poll that you put up just a moment ago, if you have a choice, 70% of the people in America do not want Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And not only do we have two very unpopular potential nominees, but both of them potentially facing very serious legal troubles. Overwhelming majority of Americans are looking for something else. And so when given the choice between Donald Trump, Joe Biden, or neither, most Americans pick neither. And it's, look, there are 49% of the people in America right now that are registered independent. And there are many, 58% of the Democrats, I think, do not want Joe Biden to be their nominee. About 50% of the Republicans do not want Donald Trump. If we're faced with those two choices, look, it's very understandable why so many people in America would like to have another choice.
So you've ruled out running for the Republican nomination, but over the last couple of days, your Twitter account's been posting some videos that some folks have said strike them as almost like soft campaign-style videos. Are you still considering a third-party potential run for the presidency?
It's not something that I'm considering, but as I've said a number of times, look, we're in really unprecedented, uncharted waters where we've never been as a country, and we don't know what it's going to be like next spring. And so, you know, I left the door cracked open, but you know, they were campaign-style videos that we put out quite a while ago when I was, you know, still governor, and while we were considering running in the Republican primary. So we haven't done any, you know, overt steps to take any actions. But I am involved in No Labels because I really believe in bipartisan common sense solutions and the ability to reach across the aisle. And I think we may be at the point, we don't know at this point, but it may be time for folks to have the courage to put the country first and rather than just continue the status quo politics as usual that we're all fed up with.
I want to talk to you. You brought up former President Trump's legal troubles. As you know, he's now under the potential cloud of another indictment. I want to play for you what former Vice President Mike Pence said about that yesterday.
His reckless words on that day endangered my family and all of us at the Capitol. But I'm not convinced it was criminal. And I hope it, with the possibility of another indictment coming against the president, I hope it doesn't come to that.
If Trump's words and actions endangered Pence's life, threatened the peaceful transfer of power, do you think that he should not be prosecuted, as the former vice president just said?
Well, look, I think the law is the final arbiter of men's actions and that no man is above the law. These were serious things that were taking place on January 6th. I was very involved in it. I actually had leaders of Congress calling me as the next door governor, begging me for help because the Capitol Police were overwhelmed and under attack. And I sent the Maryland State Police riot team. I called up the Maryland National Guard, and for hours there was no action going on at the White House while we were taking action, direct action immediately over and over again. And the fact that this riotous mob took over the Capitol and people, kind of say, well, it was bad, but we really shouldn't look into it. It's crazy to me. I mean, I think this was one of the worst moments in American history. And the next day, after I called up the National Guard, Maryland National Guard was the first to arrive outside of D.C. Maryland State Police were the first to arrive. We got the situation under control with some of the allies. And, the next day, I called on President Trump to resign and to let Mike Pence finish out the remainder of the term and conduct a peaceful transition. So, I admire Mike Pence. I think he stood up and did the right thing on January 6th and upheld the Constitution. But I would, disagree with him that, we should excuse the president's behavior just because he happened to be president.
I want to ask you now about Ron DeSantis, who's running second in the Republican primary here for that nomination. You had said recently that DeSantis's campaign was, quote, dropping like a rock and close to over. There's been a lot of talk about a potential reset there. Where do you think he stands now? Do you think he can turn things around?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, he obviously got the message, and I think I was correct that the campaign was in turmoil, and they were dropping, and now they've decided they've got to kind of retool the entire campaign and rebuild it from the ground up, because here's a guy who was getting all the attention, who had all the name recognition, was wall-to-wall coverage on Fox News, and it seemed to be, with the Trump base, maybe the guy that's the next Trump. And yet he has continued to falter. I know he had some weaknesses, both personally as a candidate and within the campaign. And I'm glad that they're, taking a look at trying to retool. So we'll see how effective that is. But obviously, you don't make drastic changes if things are going well.
Do you think the message needs to change?
I think so. I mean, he's been trying to kind of out-Trump Trump and move to the right of him with the MAGA base. They took a look at him, and then they moved back to Trump. And so even with the indictments, Trump's numbers went up and DeSantis's went down. I think about 50% of the people in the Republican primary do not want Trump. And I think you need to go appeal to those folks. We've got 12 candidates running, and so far, nobody is really standing out. And I'm hopeful that someone with a positive, hopeful vision for America will step up and be able to unify all those folks that want to move, like I am, that want to move in a different direction, away from Donald Trump and back to a more traditional, more Reagan-esque, bigger tent Republican Party.
All right, Larry Hogan, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.